Have you ever heard this saying, no poison can kill a positive thinker, and no medicine can save a negative thinker? Well, I'm going to show you how this is not the case. If so, well, I think all spiritual teachers, gurus should pack up, close up shop. They should all go into their caves and just spend their lives meditating because there is no hope for this world. When you spend time in the company of negative people, whether it's at work, home, socially, or in the public, some people, most people actually, can end up feeling very down, agitated, angry, and end up having a depleted energy. You may come away feeling as though your energy is very drained and you feel very tired. And what happens is that your mind ends up being cluttered because in spending time with these negative people, you end up creating noise in the form of criticism about these people's negativity. And you can end up being an emotional basket case at times. You see, often you may feel that you are a positive person and therefore you are better than the negative person. Yet, in their company, you end up feeling down and can feel battered and beaten and broken after spending some time with them. If this happens to you, you are not all that better, are you? And if you consider yourself a spiritual person, then you are not all that spiritual because you cannot withstand the negativity that comes out of people. In fact, you are the one who are weak, and the negative person is actually strong because your positivity is not grounded. It is not powerful enough compared to the negative energy of the negative person that actually overpowers you. So do not ever feel that you are better than negative people, because if you are adversely affected by them, you too are actually negative. If they are sucking your energy, then they are strong and you are weak. And in this case, you need to recognize this of yourself. So you could now strengthen your positivity and the good in you to actually withstand negativity and evil so that you are not easily brought down when you're in such environment or presence. If you notice, spiritual teachers, evolved spiritual teachers, gurus, they are continuously in the midst of negative and hurting people. When you go to church, to a mosque, a temple, a spiritual center, and you sit before spiritual teachers, you're not there because you're all so happy and life is perfect and you feel at peace and in bliss all the time. You are there because you have something happening in you and you need encouragement and you need wisdom and knowledge to be able to come through it. So, in that state, you are actually carrying around some negativity in you, burdens, frustrations, etc. Right? So, these teachers are therefore always in the presence of negative and hurting people. But they do not get emotionally entangled with you. At least gurus, spiritual teachers who are highly evolved, ancient, especially like ancient gurus, yogis, etc., they don't get emotionally entangled with you. They are not attached to any expectation for you to transform, although they want you to transform because this is for your benefit and the benefit of other negative people and hurting people who have to deal with you. It is not for the guru's benefit, the highly evolved guru's benefit, because they're okay. They do not need you to transform in order for them to be okay. The true gurus are actually of loving service to you. They're there helping and guiding you and are in your physical presence, and yet they remain unaffected by you. They are not brought down easily by your inner and outer disturbances and burdens. They are very stable within and are actually very resistant to your negativity and the effects of negativity. Until you're at that level, however, of a true guru, then you must take measures to guard yourself against negativity and evil. And you must strengthen your positivity and divine qualities to become resistant to negativity. And in order to do that, you have to start by using some emotional intelligence so that you can actually come to a point where you are emotionally independent. So your happiness and peace are not dependent upon others who themselves do not know what it is to be happy and at peace within. And when you come to that point, then there will be no more tit for tat. You fire a bullet of negativity to me, so I'm going to fire one right back at you in a split second. Okay? This will all come to an end with emotional independence. But in the meantime, for you to be able to arrive at this point, my best advice to you is to at least start by not walking around as though you are better than negative people. Because as you can tell by now, these negative people are actually the powerful ones because they are overpowering and pulling you down with their negative energy. They keep pulling you and drawing you into their negative world and their negative state of being by the way you feel, how you absorb their energy, and how you react senselessly. So let me now share with you some ways to strengthen and protect yourself against negative people. Well, the first thing is please do understand and accept that negative people are actually unwell. They do not know how to be better as yet. They are still at that level of unawareness of themselves. So realize that if you are adversely affected to cause you to react negatively and in a very hostile manner toward them, that you too are unwell and you too need healing. Next point is I say stop forcing people to change while you are not as yet fully emotionally independent of their behaviors and their attitudes. You see, we tend to think that they are actually negative people, but they may be negative in an area in which you are positive, and you may be negative in an area in which they are positive. So let us apply some emotional intelligence while you are trying to heal yourself now from the effects and impact of negative people, such as one, exercise self-restraint. And this would actually require you to ignore the negative people and their behaviors and what they say and their attitudes. And in order to do that, it will require you to become very silent. So you'll have to zip the lips, put on some duct tape if you have to. Do not react, do not lash out. Otherwise, you are going to risk disrespecting your own self and others. And you will end up restricting your own spiritual growth. Now, when you apply restraint by becoming silent and non-reactive, you may still end up a little bit riled up inside and agitated, but at least you are not escalating a bad situation by engaging negatively. If you say nothing, they are not getting any juice from you, right? So they will eventually kind of shut up. Okay? And this can actually be very powerful for your well-being. Next, try and redirect the conversation into a positive light, especially if you're engaging it with a friend or family members. Try and see how much you can redirect the conversation into a positive light. But when you do that, you also have to be very careful, because you would find that the negative person can drain your energy. You can use a lot of energy when you are being pulled in one direction and you are trying to pull somebody else in another direction. Okay? Try to make that conversation in that case very short and sweet, and find a reason to exit. Otherwise, you're going to be spending time and energy always trying to redirect, and it has happened to me. So I've learned from experience the wisdom of redirecting into a positive light, but then letting it be and letting it go and walking away. The next thing is set boundaries and limits by cutting off being in the company of those who impact you negatively. Now, if you choose to do this, especially with family and friends, I advise you to kindly ensure that it is done as a period for you to strengthen yourself in your positive nature, for you to heal from any negative impacts. And if you're going through a period like that, because I have done it and I've gone through that and I've learned that this is the best way to do it, is to let them know that you let them know that this is what you're doing, you're trying to heal, so you do not destroy your relationships unnecessarily. um, and I found it a very good thing to do, because sometimes people could share with you even positive things, and you may, and with good intentions, but you perceive this, or somehow it is having a negative impact on you, and it impacts your well-being negatively. Sometimes it could even be a positive message, and I've actually had that. I know some people sending me positive stuff meant with good, with good intentions, and it would agitate me because I saw that there wasn't truth in it, such as the statement I introduced this topic on. That at a point had agitated me, but now I'm getting better at those things. So when you ask people for a break as you are healing, then you are more likely to earn their respect and preserve the relationship. And I've seen so many relationships and friendships going down the drain in the name of being so intense about the company they keep, upon only restricting it to absolutely good and positive people, and so they shut out everybody out, a lot of people out of their lives, and they destroy friendships in the name of spirituality. So just be very sensitive in terms of how you approach this. You see, sometimes good people end up negative because of what they are facing in life. They may generally be positive people, but they end up in a very difficult situation in life. And especially when they end up somehow feeling isolated and alone with no help and a support for active solutions. So these were people who were positive, and life just hit them a curveball at times, and the situation is very difficult, and their mind takes them down a negative path. So, this whole concept of no poison can kill a positive thinker, no medicine can save a negative thinker, is so untrue, because even positive people can become very negative and be affected adversely. And um, even negative people can heal, because it may take some time, but not every negative person is totally negative, not every positive person is totally positive. Next point, do not engage. If you must, do so not at the level they're doing it. Don't bring yourself down, otherwise you will end up emotionally and mentally and irrationally involved with them, reacting and not responding sensibly. And therefore, what happens? You end up becoming just as toxic as them, and they may end up disrespecting you also. Okay? Um, do not become a garbage truck, collecting and absorbing people's negativity, because you will have a very long journey to take in order to dump the garbage, to get rid of that toxic waste. Now, let us take a look at how we can take this emotional intelligence and actually transform it into emotional independence. So, no matter what is directed toward you from others, and wherever you end up being, if you happen to end up in their company, you can still remain stable within, because most of the times people use emotionally intelligent techniques and they still end up being negatively affected within. They may not express it, or they are just harboring it within themselves. And we want to not let that persist in your life. In order to transform emotionally intelligent techniques to emotional independence, you have to develop divine qualities. And the reason for this is because if you stick with the techniques, you're going to notice that you're going to always be operating and drawing on the mind. And that will eventually become very tiring, because you're going to have to think your way through to handle the situation with negative thinking people. But if you develop divine qualities, what happens is that these become the essence of who you are, and they will arise spontaneously when you are in a negative situation. So you don't have to think your way through all the time to deal with the situation. So develop divine qualities. And the first one being, be humble, because now you understand that not only negative people are negative, but also positive people have negative tendencies. And if you think you're positive, but you are actually reacting negatively, you are still weak. If you can own up to this fact, you have set the wheel of motion for increasing your positive strength and for any healing that has to take place in yourself from the impacts of negativity in your life. And this is rather humbling. The next one is to eliminate negative judgment and criticizing to condemn. You know, scriptures say, judge not, and ye shall not be judged, because if you think you're so positive and you go about criticizing negative people, other people are probably going to watch you and say, look at Mr. Positive or Miss Positive. They think they're so positive, but look at how they're condemning and putting down and criticizing and becoming negative, just like the negative people they're judging. So do not focus on other people's negativity, but on your own. How your thoughts work, the emotions they create in you, how you feel, and how you project these onto others. Whenever you are tempted to judge others, just remind yourself, keep telling yourself, it is all they know. I am positive, I know better, and therefore I can respond better. Third one, be compassionate to negative people. Understand that negative people are not okay within. You know what that is like because you recognize it in yourself. And maybe you've been through it, and maybe you're still going through that. But because you've experienced it, now you can be empathetic, which helps you to become very compassionate to negative people. Understand that negative people are actually not all that well. Otherwise, they wouldn't be negative, okay? They actually really do not know better. They are just mentally, emotionally, and spiritually in pain. And this is how we can actually create a compassionate world when each one of us develop compassion within ourselves to the other. Next point, transform your energy by, instead of creating negative thoughts of negative people, think healing thoughts for them. Project that out. Send out loving energy to them. Negative people do not need more negative to be sent their way, bombarding them, hitting them. They already have enough negativity to deal with. They actually need some goodness to counteract their pain. Be always alert to the fact that other people's negativity are theirs. Do not make their negativity yours. In other words, be detached, okay? Don't get entangled and trapped in negativity. And please place a healing light around you, in your heart center, because this becomes very protective. It's a transforming energy, transforms you. Place a healing light around those who are negative people. And when you do all this, it will create peace and harmony and kindness and compassion in you. And then you'll be better equipped to deal with negativity in a much more sensible and considerate way. And I know this works because I have had to live through dealing with some very negative people in the way they dealt with me. And it was not pleasant. And I actually found that I became very reactive and didn't respond in the nice, peaceful, beautiful way that I normally do. And responding is one thing. I can respond very strict and direct and could possibly sound a bit harsh when I do that, but even though I may do that externally, I wouldn't be affected within. But then I found myself actually starting to get affected within. And I went back to the point where I would, understood how difficult it is to live in their shoes because they're negative. And I started passing that healing light within me around my heart, sending out positive thoughts to them. Instead of focusing always on their negativity, I started to focus on some good aspects of the people. And in time, it took years, but it eventually turned around. So again, from my experience, that first introductory statement I shared with you, I can prove that it is wrong. It's just that when we want people to change, when we think negative people cannot become positive, no matter what medicine you administer, this is not true. If it's medicine, it will work. It may not work in your timing, but in divine time, okay? And that is why that statement probably came about. The next point, in terms of developing divine qualities, I say meditate, because when you do, it could bring you to a place of peace, whereby you are not as disturbed easily by the outside. And our world today actually needs a lot of love, a lot of peace, and a lot of harmony, but it starts with the individual. So don't try to get it out there until you try to get it in here, okay? These are some ways that you can become emotionally independent, so you do not have to rely upon others for you to feel and be okay within. And then you can be a true friend to the world, whereby you don't have hate or anger or resentment in you. Accept that everybody is at different stages in their evolution, in expansion, in their understanding. Convert the emotional intelligent technique of outer silence to inner silence. And one of the ways to do that is, of course, through meditation, because it brings you into a peaceful state of being, which facilitates the transformation of that outer silence to inner silence. And another one, develop devotion for God. Now, to develop devotion for God, engage in very sacred and spiritual activities such as pray and recite mantras. And when you pray and recite mantras, these prayers are so powerful that they can actually put a protective shield around you to keep out negative energy so that you are not touched by it, even though it were directed toward you. And in India, they have ancient scriptures and they make movies from them. And I love how that was depicted in their movies. It shows whereby the individual will recite certain mantras and prayers and build up this energy, this barrier around them, so that when somebody shoots an arrow at them, the arrow bounces back off. Or somebody tries to penetrate that barrier, you see them get thrown away. So it's a lovely depiction as to what can happen when you charge your aura, your energy field, with powerful prayers and mantras. When you pray to God, it develops devotion within you. When you develop that devotion, you feel a love for God, and it fills your heart to create compassion and understanding for negative people. And all of this brings you to a state of calm in your state of being to deal much better with negativity. It allows you to deal with negativity in a much more enlightened way, not negatively reacting, but in a much more empowering way. So, just to conclude now, emotional independence actually requires and begins with awareness of self. And this is the master key to transformation. So let us take some time now to compare emotional intelligent techniques with emotional independence. And let us outline, you're going to see the difference. Emotional intelligence, you start to ignore, you create boundaries, you set limits, you restrict engagement with people and environment. So basically, what you're doing, if you notice, when you do all that, you're going to be okay only when you do all that. And therefore, your emotions are still dependent upon people and environment. And because you are becoming very restricted as to the company you keep and where you go. So what you end up doing is you can end up creating a prison for yourself unconsciously, because in trying to just have only positive people, which by now not positive people aren't always positive, you block out a lot from your life. And nothing wrong in blocking out you know, a lot of negativity, because I'll tell you this, I won't sit in the company of people who swear all the time. I find that to be a very disgusting behavior. I don't appreciate it. It's very unpleasant. So I will definitely block out anyone who, if I have to sit in your company and that's all you're doing, it's overpowering, then there's no pleasantness there. I don't need to be there. Okay, so this is emotional intelligent techniques and the outcome. Let us look at emotional independence. With emotional independence, you can be and go anywhere. Your state of being, your happiness and your peace of mind are not dependent on others and the environment and situations. And Indians call this total freedom or moksha. You're totally free inwardly and outwardly. And true gurus, the enlightened ones, great masters, they actually go into prisons. And when they go there, they go into physical prisons. You might cringe at the thought because you're so positive. No way I'm going into a prison. Too much negativity there. Yet, true gurus, enlightened masters, they go to prisons to reform and to enlighten with love. They come out of that prison touched by the suffering of others, yet they come out as stable as when they went in. So they are free. So they end up being victors. When you use emotional intelligence techniques and you stay stuck in the technique, you end up creating your own prison. And you have to be very careful because then you can end up becoming a victim. This is why it is very important to transform emotional intelligence to emotional independence, because this is what gives you what Indians like to call moksha, freedom. Then you're in an empowered state to help transform negative people who, without being, transform negative people without being brought down, and you can actually stand up to and engage with them as needed. So I encourage you, as I leave you now, to develop divine qualities in you so you can become emotionally independent, and not um, have your happiness and your state of being, your peace, reliant upon anyone, whether or not they are happy and at peace.